Welcome to everyone. In this video you will learn how powerful and profitable are the cycles when trading them in the stock market. You will also learn how to use them to boost profits. This week video will cover the Dow Jones Industrial Average for the week of April 1st, 2024. Before we start, make sure you read carefully the disclaimer. Let's start with the 20-week cycle. On my last update, I was debating the possibility of 20-week cycle low forming on March 11th or still to come. Let's see what's happened since the last update, and what's next for the near future. The February 23rd high at 39,282.28 was certainly the 20-week cycle peak. On my last update I was looking for the first sign, confirming this 20-week cycle low. The sign I was looking for was the market crossing above the 20-day cycle line. It's happened on March 18th. We later will see the details of this crossing when we will analyze the 20-day cycle. With good degree of confidence we can label the March 11th as the 20-week cycle low. The next 20-week cycle low is scheduled for the second week of July, the yellow zone on the chart. We have to keep in mind the possibility of this low could be late or earlier than expected. Why we should label the 20 weeks low on March 11th? Because if the 20-week cycle low occur this week, this 20-week cycle low will be 23 weeks long or at least 161 days, which is very long for a 20-week cycle in a bull market. On Hurst nominal model average length, the 20-week cycle is 17 weeks or 136 days. If the 20-week cycle low is still to come and is 23 weeks or longer, this means some bearishness coming into the market. In the current market, I believe is very unlikely this 20-week cycle low is still to come. So the March 11th low is the 20-week cycle low and is 19 weeks long. When the cycles extend, is usually a bearish sign. In bull market, the cycles usually have a tendency to be shorter than the nominal model. Since we start a new 20-week cycle on March 11th, the cycle trend is up this week and this up to mid-May. What's next? I draw the 20-week cycle trend line, the green line from the October 2023 20-week cycle low to the March 11th 20-week cycle low. We will use this trend line to identify the 40-week cycle peak formation. When the Dow Jones Industrial Average will cross below this trend line, this will confirm the 40-week cycle peak is formed or in formation. Let's come back on this 20-week cycle. Since the peak of the first 20-week cycle formed on the right part of the cycle, the solid vertical red line. The peak for this second 20 weeks peak is scheduled to occur on the peak of the cycle, the red dashed line or before. Hurst call that time translation. When the time translation occur on the left part of the cycle, this is a bearish sign. When is formed on the peak, this neutral? Meaning the cycle will be neutral, we call a neutral cycle, when the low of the present cycle is around the same level where it started. When the time translation occur on the right, is usually bullish. In bull market there is usually an alternation. If the first cycle time translation occur on the right, then the second is neutral or form on the left part of the cycle. Having said that, we can expect the peak for this second 20-week cycle formed during the first 2 weeks of May. The success rate for the 20 weeks is 80%. Let's move down to the lower time frame, the 80-day cycle. Like I mentioned in my last Dow Jones Industrial Average update, March 11th is the 80 days low, the next one is expected on May 18th. The cycle trend is up at least to April 14th, when this 80-day cycle should form its peak, the red dashed line. The new all-time high in the 80-day cycle peak at 39,282.28 occurred on the right part of the cycle. The red solid vertical line, right time translation. That's the reason why the 80-day cycle correction was mild, like mentioned above. When this happen, is usually bullish. So we can expect a neutral or left time translation for this 80-day cycle peak. The March 21st new all-time high at 39,889.05 happened on the left part of the cycle. Is this the actual 80-day cycle peak? If that's the case, then we can expect the Dow Jones Industrial Average start his correction. How can we find out if this high is the peak of this 80-day cycle? we have to watch two important trading tools. The first one is, if the Dow Jones Industrial Average cross below his 20-day cycle line. And the second if the market cross below his 80-day cycle line. If that's happened, this will confirm some bearishness start to come in the market. The success rate for this cycle is 100%. What's next for the 80-day cycle? Let's see where we are on the roadmap. On my last update, I mentioned assuming the 80-day cycle low was on March 11th. The crossing above the 20-day cycle will provide an upside target, which should be met very quickly. This happened on March 18th, we will see in details during the 20-day cycle analysis. Then, formed the 20-day cycle peak. After forming his peak, the market should correct and find support on his 20-day cycle line, around March 28th. The market correct and formed the 20-day cycle low on March 26th, 2 days earlier and above his cycle line, which usually a bullish sign. Then the Dow Jones Industrial Average will start to rally again, and should make a high higher than the target triggered by the previous crossing. Way to form the 40-day cycle peak, around the first week of April. So this week we are here. Then around the second week of April, the Dow Jones Industrial Average should cross below his cycle line, providing a downside target. This target should certainly be very close to the 40-day cycle line, and made a 40-day cycle low around April 14th. Then the Dow Jones Industrial Average should rally again, crossing back above his 20-day cycle line, providing an upside target for the 80-day cycle peak. The market will cross again below his cycle line, providing a downside target for the 80-day cycle, with a first low around the first week of May, then rally, using his cycle line as resistance. Then resume his decline to form the 80-day cycle low on May 18th. This week, the cycle trend is up. The 40-day cycle. The Dow Jones Industrial Average is on his way to form the next 40-day cycle peak. On my last update, I explained the possibility of a shorter than usually 40-day cycle, lasting 27 days, 7 days short than the nominal model. Because cycles are dynamic, sometimes they shrink or extend. It's not unusually in bull markets to have shorter cycles. In this case, the next 40-day cycle low is scheduled for April 14th. We will have a confirmation of the 40-day cycle peak when the Dow Jones Industrial Average will cross below his 20-day cycle trend line. The 40-day cycle peak should form very soon. There is a possibility the 40 days peak already occurred last week. The red dashed line. We have to watch carefully for the confirmation on the next lower time frame. The success rate is 86%, and the cycle trend pointing to the downside. The 20-day cycle. This cycle is a very important cycle to help us to identify different short-term cycles. This cycle follows very well the roadmap. The low for the last 20-day cycle was expected on March 28th. The low occurred on March 26th, 2 days earlier. Last trading signal was on March 18th, when the Dow Jones Industrial Average crossed above his cycle line at 38,864, providing a potential upside target at 39,245, 380 points or 0.98% of potential profits. The crossing above his cycle line confirmed the 20-week cycle low on March 11th. Let's examine the trading signal and the power of the cycles. After forming the 20-week cycle low on March 11th, we were expecting the Dow Jones Industrial Average crossing his 20-day cycle line, providing a potential upside target. Potential target 39,245. We also know the target should be met very quickly. Because time-wise, according to our roadmap, we can expect a peak on March 18th, or after, since the trend is bullish. But before the March 28th, which is the expecting date for this 20-day cycle low, the Dow Jones Industrial Average meet his 39,245 target on March 20th. Next day on March 21st, the market formed the 20-day cycle peak, right time translation, the red solid line. If you combine the time and price target, we have a profit of 380 points or 1% in only 2 trading days. This trading technique can be used to trade on the futures market. or trading options or even some stocks. As we can see, the cycles are a very powerful tool for trading the market. But we have to keep in mind, past performance is not indicative of future results. What's next? After forming the 40 days peak, the Dow Jones Industrial Average should cross below his cycle line, providing a downside target, very close to his 40 days cycle line. We will watch carefully the 20 days cycle trend line, what's first called a VTL, to confirm the 40 days cycle peak. But since the Dow Jones Industrial Average is still very bullish, there is the possibility the market won't meet his downside target. In that kind of market, it's very risky to try trading the downside targets. On the last trading signal with the 20-day cycle, the Dow Jones Industrial Average missed his downside target by 163 points or 0.43%. But since the low was within 1% of the target is considered as meet. Usually when the market missed his downside target is a bullish sign. Same on the upside, when the market missed his upside target is usually bearish. The cycle trend is up. The success rate is 90%. The 10 days cycle. On the March 12th, the Dow Jones Industrial Average crossed above his cycle line at 38,688.98, giving a potential target at 38,920.96, or 231 points or 0.6%. On the same day, the Dow Jones Industrial Average made a high at 39,071.56, meeting the target. Trading this signal, we have a profit of 231 points or 0.6% in one day. On Friday, March 18th, the Dow Jones Industrial Average found support on his cycle line, as expected for the 10 days cycle low. After a major low, the first 10 days cycle should find support on his cycle line. Then rally to form a peak on March 21st at 39,889, then decline for the second 10 days cycle low on March 26. Technically, at that stage of the cycle, the Dow Jones Industrial Average supposed to cross below his cycle line, providing a downside target. The non-crossing confirm, we still have a good amount of bullishness in this market. What's next? The next 10 days cycle low is scheduled on Tuesday, April 2nd. At that time, the market should cross below his cycle line, giving a downside target. Here the cycle line for this week, and the potential target. The success rate for the 10 days cycle is 100%. In conclusion, the overall market is still bullish. The Dow Jones Industrial Average is on his way to form the next 40-week cycle peak, and the low for this cycle is expected around mid-July. If you like this video, please click on the like button and subscribe, to make sure you don't miss any future important videos. If there is a special market you are interested in, please do not hesitate to mention it in comment below. This is the end of this week's video. Thank you for following me. Next week, I will publish another market update.